All right, all right. Welcome, everyone. Today we have a very special show where I'm going to be joined by Luca, our board member and director of engineering, to talk about Iota Rebased and how it came about and why we're so excited about it. We're going to talk about Iota 2.0, and we're just going to have a little bit of fun talking about everything Iota and how we want to move things forward with the project. Today I'm in a different setup, so I'm here in a co-working space in New York. It's kind of weird doing the AMA not standing. I think it makes quite a big difference sitting down. But without further ado, let me get Luca on this show. Hello, Luca.
Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. Hi.
How is the snow?
It's gone. It's gone already.
Seriously?
It snowed strongly, but it's now gone already. Yeah.
You know,
Just
I, I, I
realized.
have like this joke. Like every time I get out of Switzerland and fly somewhere else, it always snows, so there's always like this nice weather, and so I always miss out on it. So I missed out on the snow now. Okay. By the way, can you see me? Because like I think your
I can see you.
screen just froze on my stage.
Oh wait. Oh god.
Maybe it's a setup.
It always freezes in the best possible positions.
I mean, it's a good setup.
But
I think what
stopping the cam.
Yeah. You want to turn it on again?
Yeah, I tried to, but it doesn't work.
Okay.
Start cam. No, it's frozen for me.
That's funny. Wait, maybe I can just remove you from stage and add you again. I guess we'll have to accept you're frozen.
If I click stop, do you see still my picture or?
No, I think it's like no picture at all.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not getting it to work.
We'll make it work. No, but let's talk about Iota Rebase, and I think the most important question is why Iota Rebase for you, right? Because I remember very vividly the discussion that we had in Abu Dhabi in February, right, where we ultimately made this decision on the foundation level, and then proposed that we really double down on this direction and focus on it exclusively instead of trying to play two different games, right, with Iota 2.0 and trying to integrate the Move VM there, and instead just doubling down on like taking those existing protocols and accelerating our path. Like, why is Iota Rebase so important for you, and why do you think this is the right direction?
Yeah, I think we have explained it thoroughly in the blog post, but basically it boils down to us not wanting to have like multiple breaking changes again with the protocol updates that we are doing. And if we would go down the path with Iota 2.0 and then layer 1 smart contracts, we would basically break the protocol twice for all applications, integration, exchanges, etc. And I don't feel like we're anymore, in that space where we can afford doing this. Like just generally speaking, people need to have a platform upon which they can build something up on, which is interesting and which just runs forever. So yeah, basically it's a very, radical decision or proposal. But it's very necessary because I want to see Iota really building up an ecosystem of a vast array of applications. And breaking changes just simply do not really allow you to have that. It's also the case that we, within the R&D department, we had this layer 1 smart contract task force, and we looked at multiple platforms, and we just came to the conclusion that we want to use MoveVM because it really resembles our core values, like parallel execution, etc. And we discussed within R&D about how we would bring this to Iota 2.0, and it just simply looked like that would have been a very, very long path to go down to, or to follow. Yeah, so basically that's where this comes from. So we just like, as you say so beautifully, right, leapfrog IOTA technology to be useful today and not to, waste more time. Basically, that's what it really boils down to.
Yeah. No, I think that summarizes it well, right? We need to have a production-ready system. We need a programmable system, right? Network for builders to build on, so that it doesn't just depend on the IOTA foundation. I think people have to understand as well that we, as IOTA, we went through sort of a transformation, right? Because if you think about IOTA in 2017, 2018, up to 2021, we were sort of like an enterprise blockchain, right? We were focused on doing use case with corporates, with governments, and it was the IOTA Foundation that was primarily doing all of that. And that had its ups in order to bootstrap IOTA, in order to sort of build up that reputation with IOTA in the industry, right? Because those big companies, those partners, needed to have an entity to work with. And the Iota Foundation, as a regulated nonprofit foundation, was really the perfect entity to establish that, right? Establish that trust. And that has really been sort of like one of the biggest assets that we have in Iota, that the Iota Foundation enabled us to work with these companies. And obviously, many of these use cases are now reaching a stage where they're not just a pilot, where they're not just proof of concepts, but where there can be real products running on the Iota mainnet. And so I think for us, it was also always this desire to have this production-ready system, to have not just Corticite, but to go beyond and to make sure that we have this programmable infrastructure so that these use cases can actually launch on the mainnet, right? And not just on a layer 2 or a side chain, or even worse, on a private testnet, right? And so I think that is where one of the main reasons to make such a radical decision, as you said, came about.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, right, it's just clear that if you want to really implement any production system which leverages DLT today, and you do not have smart contracts, you will very quickly find out that you just simply cannot really implement your use case. And we know, working with our partners, that they do have this requirement, and that, it just simply means that we need to have them. And we couldn't have, we can't really wait another 1.5 or 2 years until layer 1 smart contracts would have come to IOTA 2.0.
Yeah, and even beyond that, right? Like, we need to make sure that it's not just a IOTA Foundation that's behind IOTA, right? But that we really have an entire ecosystem of validators, of that different developers contributing to the core protocol and moving things forward there. And most importantly, have an entire ecosystem that builds on top of IOTA, right? So it's not just a IOTA Foundation or adjacent entities building on IOTA, but we have an entire ecosystem, right? Like, having this permissionless innovation is so powerful, right? And enabling anybody to build on top of your network is a sure way of not guaranteeing, but accelerating growth, I would say. And so once we actually kickstart this motion, which we're doing now, obviously, I think we'll see some really amazing applications being built on IOTA that are not possible on any other network. And so with that, I want to ask you, like, we made this decision to integrate the EVM as a layer 2 chain, right? And so the EVM for us was really a very critical part, or very critical piece for our strategy to make IOTA sort of Web3 compatible, to sort of bootstrap the ecosystem. And as we've seen today, we hit $50 million in TVL. It's an exciting milestone, right? Because we see that it's really come alive. And the team has done an incredible job in getting unique dApps on there, getting other teams outside of the IOTA ecosystem to build on top of the EVM chain. So I want to ask you, like, why MoveVM? What made you and the team so excited about the MoveVM, and why do you think that is really the next smart contract paradigm?
Yeah, I think one topic is definitely like performance. EVM is inherently like a sequential execution. So you're pretty much bottlenecked by whatever speed, one thread or one core can actually do in the end. And with Move-based chain, and especially with Sui Move, although Aptos also has this, you do actually get parallel execution, which means that you can scale the execution, with the amount of cores that you have. Obviously, in practice right now, we're not yet at a stage where, really this throughput is needed, but you never know when there's like a killer application, you then maybe suddenly do have this throughput problem, and then it's really good to be prepared with it. Then it's also about, just the security model that the programming language provides you with. Solidity is very prone to developer errors, and especially in the application setting where you're building financial products and other things, you basically do want to have the right tools which help you in writing safe code. And with Move, you get this more and better than with Solidity. It borrows some concepts, from the Rust programming language, making sure that you don't randomly drop assets or that you don't transfer them within functions and things like this. So that's basically the main two reasons why we chose it.
Yeah, I mean, it's very exciting about that. So, like, if I think of Move, it's so like Rust-like, right? The smart contract language. Like, do you think it's a very difficult language to learn for experienced programmers, or how do you see the learning curve with Move?
No, like it's much simpler than learning Rust, because learning Rust is has a very steep learning curve. Move, I think, is something more akin to a scripting language. So if you are, I don't know, a TypeScript developer or a Python developer or something like this, then it's you can easily pick it up. Sure, you have to learn some concepts which are alien to you, in the first moment. But with like anything regarding programming languages, it just takes a couple of days, and then you basically are in the loop and you understand how to use these concepts. So I would say it's fairly easy. I think the difficulty is just, that it's a new language, and therefore the material for it might not be as readily available as one might want it to be. But I mean, that's certainly something that we are really working on within the foundation to make it better.
Yeah, I mean, I think initially one of the most obvious and one of the most clear decisions that we have made as well is that we do not want to build our own programming language, right? Because I think this has been something that was tried and tested by so many different networks over the years, right? If you think of Algorand, if you think of Radix, if you think of
Cardano,
some other, right, Cardano, and so on and so forth. I think it can work in some cases, but the biggest difficulty was just really building up that entire ecosystem of tooling, of integrations, of developer education, right? Like you need to really train developers, and that's like probably one of the most expensive efforts that you can do, right? Like building your own smart contract language. So I think for us it was very clear that we shouldn't do that. So we went out on this quest to figure out the best smart contract language to adopt. And so, why do you think the Move ecosystem is different from those others? Like, why do you think that this is the right language to bet on, right? Because we as the foundation obviously need to invest into this as well now, right, to really build up our own Move ecosystem. But there's obviously a lot to be said from the origin of Move, right, when it started at Facebook. And the entities that are behind it today. Like, how do you see building up that ecosystem? Like, what's your opinion on that?
Yeah, I mean, right. It's a young language. It's a young ecosystem, which means that, of course, you need to do a lot of efforts to basically bring it up and making it stronger. But Move was specifically designed for smart contracts and for asset management. So I just believe it's the right language for the tool and for the application people want to usually build.
I mean, go ahead.
Yeah, and I mean, exactly, that's why it gives you all these security guarantees. And if we just look at how often some random bug just happens in some Solidity contract, and then how many millions of dollars get lost just because of some programming error, I think it's very obvious that there should be a very big emphasis on security and the security that the language provides you. Because maybe you feel limited by it, or you feel like, okay, this is very annoying that this language is trying to contain me, but in the end, right, it really actually just helps you or tries to help you be a better developer and do the right thing. Right, like it can't catch your complete logic errors in your applications, but it can catch the things which you might get wrong often. And again, in this context of blockchain and DLT, it is paramount that what you're using is very much geared towards this fact that you are possibly handling millions or billions of dollars worth in assets, or assets worth in dollars. So yeah, it's basically a great language for that, and it was specifically made for this.
Yeah, totally. And I think the origin of Move was actually quite interesting, right? Because effectively it started at Facebook. I don't know the year. I would guess 2015, 2016, right? And then it was really meant for Libra, right, to be used for their own blockchain. And so Facebook invested tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars into their own blockchain, into Move, right? And the development behind it. And then because of all the regulatory issues, the project within Facebook was completely stopped, right? The assets were sold to different entities. I think Silver Lake was one of those, from what I remember. And the two teams that spun out of it was Aptos and Sui, right? And so I think there's actually a lot of money that was invested into this smart contract language and into this ecosystem around Move, that also gave us the confidence that we can adopt this. And as you said, like, security is really paramount. And the way that this entire blockchain space is evolving is like it's really being institutionalized, right? Like all these big institutions are coming on board and are starting to tokenize real world assets. They want to be active on chain, right? What BlackRock is doing on Ethereum and now also on other networks, that's absolutely amazing. But that's just a start, right? Where those huge asset managers and financial institutions are coming on chain and want to find the right playground. And so I think for us at Iota, choosing the right smart contract language, choosing the right architecture, the right infrastructure is really critical, so that we can actually onboard those new entities to Iota and to be part of our ecosystem. So maybe to ask you about what actually excites you the most in terms of like the new use cases that are possible on Iota Rebased, that were not possible in the previous Iota network, right, with Stardust, and that are not possible on the EVM. You can go as crazy as you want.
I mean, I think for me the most important aspect is that Iota until now, right, it was a UTXO based ledger, and it was also like Iota Stardust or Iota 2.0. The actual programmability that you had as a developer in building your applications with it is very limited. There's only so much that you can actually do, and so really for me this is also first of all about just making actually it available to everyone to write proper applications in any form, right, whatever shape or form those applications are going to be. And right, we have $50 million TVL on the EVM, but then there's also a lot of Iota tokens which are just on the layer 1, and people are not transferring to the EVM for whatever reason. So I think that I want to see just the basic applications that you would find on any chain being on Iota and seeing how that takes off. But I'm also very interested in seeing more applications, geared towards real world applications, in the sense of, having on-chain identity, something which authorizes you to use a certain service, where you do, for example, have to be KYC'd because it's, engaging with certain assets which you need to be KYC'd for to be able to trade. I think this is something that would be very unique, and also really just like seeing because this entire identity stuff in the blockchain space, there's many different flavors, and you see it on many different chains. And I really want to see something like this actually flourishing and being, like, say, a system-wide concept within a chain, so that you then can do more interesting applications with this. I also think if you have something like this, right, you want to basically build something like a trust web, something which also exists in today's world. When you access a website, you kind of authenticate whether you trust this website, given whatever you have on your computer, in your SSL store, etc. And that you have something like this on chain, and that you can then access services which have more fine-grained requirements. I think that's very interesting to me. But again, I'm not really specifically interested in one particular vertical or application space. I'm really just very eager to see what developers and builders come up with. And I know, within our community, we have a lot of very good talent, which just are basically waiting to start programming and building applications. And I think we've also seen over the years that we always, got some very interested people trying to do something very interesting. And we will see, right, what basically this will unleash.
Yeah, totally, right. And I think that's the power of really permissionless innovation, where we, as the sort of builders or maintainers of the system, don't need to fully know the future, right? We should rather empower others to build the future on Iota. And I think what really differentiates us at Iota compared to other protocols is that we really focus on these real world applications, right? Like sort of bringing the real world to Web3, right? Bringing the real world on chain. And as you said, identity is really a centerpiece to that. Like it's really something that is really exciting when you can just access all of these services through your digital identity that is issued on Iota, and other people can start trusting you, right? Because you have your reputation on chain, you have your assets on chain, and now you can really start to automate all of these processes. And I think many of these use cases that we envisioned in 2017 where in many regards we were too early, right? Like if you think about it, we started this whole machine economy movement, which has now become DeepIn and AI to some extent, right? And we were too early in many regards, but now many of these use cases can come back, right? And it isn't too far-fetched to think about how Iota can be integrated into the real world for mobility, for energy, and different kind of use cases across all sectors, right? And so I think that would be really exciting to watch and unfold. Of course, we as a foundation, we have a sort of strategy of what we need to focus on with our resources, right? So I think trade logistics is really everything around Twin is the most critical one, right? Because there we are actually being used by governments already, right? In Kenya, soon the UK, and also other countries. And then we have real traders, right? Like supply chain traders actually using our system already. And so I think that is where we can have a lot of impact now that we have Rebased, because it effectively accelerates our adoption. Now we don't, as you said at the start, we are not going to have two breaking changes. We're going to have this one breaking change when the network goes live, of course, after the vote has been completed by the community, and then we are ready, so to say. And I think that really unlocks so much for us and really helps us to accelerate all of these efforts. I think that would be super interesting to see. I do want to talk about one thing, which is about EVM versus Move, right? Because we have both. And that's also something that really differentiates us to Sui and to Aptos. And we have obviously invested a lot of time and effort, and we have all these amazing builders in the EVM today. And what is your opinion of the two? Like, how do you see the interplay between the EVM, which is currently on the layer 2, and the MoveVM, which is going to be on the layer 1? And which kind of use cases do you see in both? And how do you see them sort of be complementary to each other?
Yeah, so I think it's important to elaborate, right, that the EVM is, of course, currently the major platform upon which people can build stuff on. Again, right, you said in the beginning, it now crossed 50 million TVL. So there's lots of activities, there's lots of applications on there. There's an entire DeFi ecosystem there. Yeah, and basically this will always be the case, right? The EVM will always be there. It will always run. Yeah, we did never, just because now we have smart contracts on layer one doesn't mean that the EVM is not important anymore. Quite the opposite, because again, it's still very early for the Move ecosystem for these applications. And you need to have the EVM. That's where most of the application developers, still are. So yeah, it will always be there. What is also the case is, within R&D, we're starting an effort to look into how we can basically improve this EVM and layer one story. Because basically what I want to have as an end result is that I do not want developers to have to think about, am I going to build on the layer 2 or am I going to build on the layer 1? And then do I need to use Solidity or Move? For a developer, when they want to use Iota, it should really just be, okay, I just happen to know Solidity better, or I know to happen Move better, whatever. And then I program for Iota. And a developer or builder team shouldn't really have to think about, okay, it's an L2, so what does this mean in terms of decentralization, or what does it mean in terms of speed or in terms of cost? Those are all things that developers shouldn't really be thinking about. So what we're currently investigating, and this is very early stage, right? We are not yet very far with this. It's just an idea or something that we want to look into, is to basically bring the EVM from layer 2 down to layer 1, so that everything basically gets executed on layer 1. And both execution engines or virtual machines, whatever, profit from the same degree of decentralization, and perhaps, however the system might work, maybe even the speed. And basically, then you don't have this problem anymore where we within the foundation have to build a secondary product for the layer 2, and developers don't have this problem anymore of having to think about, do I do layer 2 or do I do layer 1? And, a part of the story could also be that you have very fine-grained, better interoperability between those two virtual machines, which could mean in practice that, for example, you could call from a Move smart contract into the EVM and vice versa. Something like this, right? But it's just an idea that we currently have and that we are investigating, because again, we just want to what we within the R&D department want to provide is a platform for developers to build interesting, cool applications on. And it's our goal to just make this as easy as possible, and that might be something that we can do to kind of get this started or make this better for developers.
Yeah. No, I think the EVM is really quite important for our market adoption, right? Because imagine that we just launched Rebased now in early 2025, and then we basically need to invest into building up that entire ecosystem. And I think people underestimate how expensive it is to actually build the dApp, right? And because there's no real primitives, right? No big examples in the Move ecosystem yet. Oftentimes it would need to be built from scratch, right? Or would need to be rewritten from Solidity into Move. Security audits need to be done. And so something that costs on an EVM maybe 50K, right? Because it's all open source and you can just fork established protocols out there, and would maybe cost $500,000 to $1 million on the Move ecosystem, right? And so it would be quite costly, and it would also really cause a time delay for Iota to be ready. But now we already have the EVM, and we have a very well-established ecosystem there, right? There's perp dexes, there's dexes, there's a lending markets, there's stable coins that are being deployed, there's NFT marketplaces, there's even meme coins, right? So everything is already there. And so I think that also gives us the opportunity to give us the right time to really figure out how the Move ecosystem and the dApps that we're going to have on there, what we will want to see there, right? Because we're not going to just replicate whatever we have on the EVM already, because that would be a waste of time and money, right? So it doesn't make any sense for us to just have a DEX on the layer 1 now. and it doesn't make any sense to have the same stuff that we already have on the EVM, have it on the Move layer as well. But what makes a lot of sense is that we have unique applications that are not possible on the EVM, like for example, on-chain order book exchanges, right? Where you actually have high frequency trading on the layer one. And as you said, once we actually enable some sort of composability between Move and the EVM, I think it opens up some really, really exciting possibilities for builders to leverage both, right? And to get to the market faster, because that's all that matters in this environment that we operate in. And so I think this interplay between Move and EVM is something that's really exciting and that I'm really looking forward to explore more, how we can be leading in that regard as well, right? We're not choosing one or the other, but we're offering both to builders to build unique applications on Iota that are not possible on any other network, right? And that's what we're really here for, to make sure that we're not just doing the same as everybody else, but that we have things that are not possible anywhere else, right? And make sure that they happen on Iota. And I think that's going to be really exciting to see. Let's talk a little bit about the developer experience and what people can expect from us next year, because I think 2025, we should declare the year of the build, right? To really highlight the big effort that we want to put in to onboard builders into our ecosystem, to give them the necessary support, starting with the right technology, right? Move plus EVM, but then also beyond that, looking at hackathons, looking at events that we can do, looking at our grants programs. So what do you have to say about that? And what are you looking forward to in 2025 when it comes to builders and the support that we can give them?
Yeah, I mean, given that Move again, right, is a very young ecosystem, it's crucial for us to be on the forefront and really, at some point, maybe even handhold developers in building their applications. We fortunately, right, have like two teams where there is a big focus on building tools which make the lives of developers easier, but also another team, which just simply creates a documentation, tutorials, etc. And now that everything is public, we are obviously much more going to engage with builders and people who are interested in Move and helping them out. So yeah, I guess in terms of tooling, we basically are looking into how we can provide easier APIs for developers, because it's still right a very young ecosystem, and so there's many areas where you can basically improve the experience for developers, whether that's related to APIs for the indexer, or maybe also integration with IDEs. Those are definitely things that we are looking into and trying to improve. And yeah, I mean, also in terms of developer experience, right? We try to be more public, have like office hours and provide developers like a platform where they can interact with us and ask questions on how certain things need to be implemented, what they need to look out for, etc. Yeah, and I mean, right, we also know that in 25 we are planning on actually doing hackathons and getting a larger group of people interested in Move. I guess also the EVM and those, and really helping out this Move ecosystem. I also want to emphasize, right, for us, it's important that we kind of, we are Iota and we are embracing Move. But of course, it might also be the case that we kind of like some synergies with other projects which also are pushing Move and, kind of being there and helping them, or they helping us and us working together on pushing this ecosystem forward, because it's super important for a very new technology that you kind of work together and make sure that you can actually push it forward and don't just make your own path from the get-go. So yeah, we are basically looking into those kind of things. Also from a language perspective, what can we provide in form of Move framework packages that would make the life easier for developers. There's already some implementations or packages that we that we have in our version. And yeah, these are things which over time are going to improve. We are collecting the feedback, and we see what people might be struggling with, or where they think there's a utility that they really seek and need. And yeah, over time this will become more and more just better, right? And we're working on those things.
Yeah, absolutely. I think people need to understand, right? Like we have a very large R&D team, and I think the focus is really on being one of the leaders in this Move ecosystem, right? And work alongside the established players and sort of like the founders of Move, to help mature and evolve the entire ecosystem around Move, right? And so we already have some very exciting ideas on how we can improve tooling, how we can improve accessibility, how we can also improve things and optimize things in the protocol itself, right? So I think that roadmap itself will be really interesting to watch it unfold as well. And we really want to be part of this builder ecosystem. And I think the objective should not be to take market share from others, but the objective should be to grow the entire market together with others, right? And so I think we should also not have this hostile or antagonistic behavior where it's us versus them, because I think we're thinking too small if we act like that. I think we should really think about how we can make the entire pie bigger. And because this entire industry is still like relatively small in large in the context of of global industries, right? So there's a lot to do, and I think there's a lot to be gained by working with others. So I think I'm also really looking forward to working with other protocols and other networks and other ecosystems like the SUI ecosystem, like what Aptos is doing, like what Movement is doing. So I think that will be quite interesting. So Iota Rebase, right, is like a fundamental change in the protocol. It's a fundamental cut in our trajectory, right, and how we want to move forward. It still needs to be voted in by the community, right? One important question that we didn't cover yet is why not Iota 2.0, right? Because we've invested all this time and resources into it. Why do you think this is the right path? And why do you think it was better to go down this option rather than just taking our time with Iota 2.0?
Yeah, I mean, I think I said it in the start, but basically going down with Iota 2.0, and then, bringing later on smart contracts onto it would have been two breaking changes. And this is just very detrimental to everyone who uses Iota for applications, etc. So we can't really afford doing this. Another maybe example is, Iota 2.0 has been actually released since 7 months as a public testnet. And the team has put so much effort in producing material about Iota 2.0, making sure every little module and mechanism is kind of thoroughly explained, how everything just works. And we can basically now see 7 months later that the traction of that really didn't get off. It doesn't really seem that it has really taken on or penetrated our bubble, our Iota bubble. If you just compare the Iota Rebased announcement, right, we had much wider reach and much more people were interested in what we are actually doing compared to Iota 2.0. So yeah, it's a multiple, there's multiple factors. I think it's also about the complexity of the protocol itself. Iota 2.0, it is unique. It has interesting features, and it is definitely different than other protocols. But I think the question someone needs to ask themselves always is the thing that I've built, is it just unique and working differently? Or is it also unique because it actually provides you with something very different? Or, I think the most crucial question is always, is it useful, right? There's no real use of just being unique, but not really being very useful. And yeah, from a user perspective, or from a node or validator perspective, Iota 2.0, if you compare it to, for example, Iota Stardust, which is the current protocol version running on mainnet, from a functionality standpoint, you wouldn't really have, had more features or things to build with, right? Because the logic that you can implement would have been still the same with Iota 2.0. What, of course, would have been different or would be different with Iota 2.0 is that you would have like a dual token system with mana, right? So that where you hold the Iota token and then you get like the secondary resource called mana, which you then use to pay for transactions. You also would have had a different style of consensus algorithm. But in the end, right, it's again, it's the question, is this useful or not? And what I can say is, the developers who have worked on Iota 2.0, it was extremely hard to implement these concepts in code and then making sure that they actually run even in a public testnet setting for a prolonged period of time. For example, things like mana, were indeed like they were super hard to implement. And what's also kind of important is, usually we say in software development, it's very complex to make things simple because you do want things just to be simple for developers to be useful or that they can use it. And if you take, for example, the mana concept, so and you try to abstract it away in the library or somewhere else so that developers do not really have to deal with the complexity of it. That was something that we in particular found extremely difficult to do in practice, which means that, this complexity would have reached the actual application developers in the end. And it's those kind of design decisions with Iota 2.0, which, kind of just make me feel like, again, it's very unique. It works in its own way. But I think it kind of just misses the point in what actually we are supposed to deliver. And that's, in the first step, something that is actually useful and that you can use to build applications. Because a DLT without applications and use cases, it's just yet another DLT to like transfer tokens around. And that's not really interesting. That's something which has been solved 8 years ago or more. So basically, it's those factors, right? It's the complexity of the protocol itself. It's the fact that we would have broken the protocol twice for developers, exchange integrations, etc. And people sometimes don't really know what this actually means. Integrating with an exchange, right? Telling them and working together with them to integrate a protocol version is not something which just takes 1 week or a couple of days. Usually this takes like months, and you sometimes also need to pay again for it. And again, right, what we do Iota 2.0, and then Iota 2.0 with later on smart contracts, all of these integrations with exchanges, etc. We would have we would have done them twice. And it's like questionable, okay, does the time and the resources and the money, does this justify like actually doing this or not? And I think the big argument was, no, it does not. And we really need something that works. And that's why we're doing Iota Rebased.
Yeah, I mean, at the core of it, it's a debate about idealism versus being pragmatic, right? And I think the way that this entire crypto space evolved, it evolved from being something that was purely driven by visionary, idealistic people that were dreaming about big things, but had a hard time coming down to reality, right, in many ways. Because the crypto space of 2013, 2015, 2017 was really about shooting in a million different directions, and nothing was very concrete about what is tangible in the real world. As you said, you were being rewarded by being unique. And that was sufficient back then. But since then, the entire space has evolved so significantly, right? It's sort of been professionalized and also industrialized in many ways, right? Where new players have entered the game and they have defined a new game altogether. And the only thing that really matters today, or the only thing that really matters in the end, is the kind of adoption that you have. Adoption that only your network has, that nobody else can take away from you, right? Tangible use cases, integrations with critical partners or into existing systems, and a community, an ecosystem that is building on top of you. And so, as you rightfully said, like being unique is not enough. And I think this was also one of the main realizations that we've had with Iota 2.0 is like what we would end up delivering if we had invested even more time into it would be something that wouldn't be enough, right? And even though it would have proven many things, it would have put us into a really bad spot in the end, right? Because as you said, it's like Iota 2.0 from a user endpoint and from a builder's endpoint isn't so different from what we have today on the mainnet, right? Effectively, it's about having more decentralization. Iota Rebase is a radical change, right? It's really a transformation for Iota, where we are going to have a very, very scalable, programmable, and very exciting new technology as the base layer on Iota. And so instead of just having this continuation, we are really advocating for a radical change, because that is what we need in order to leapfrog Iota and to make sure that we are really competitive in this market, so that we can leverage the use cases and the adoption that we have built over the last few years that nobody else has, right? Nobody else has a twin or has a use case with governments or identity-related use cases, right? And to make sure that we can then also accelerate all this adoption that is happening on Iota. And so I think all of us clearly prefer the pragmatic approach rather than being idealistic, because in the end, being idealistic oftentimes is not enough to succeed, right? And this is about building a tangible business. This is about enabling other businesses to be built on top of Iota, right? So that Iota really becomes one of these standard infrastructures on which the future is being built.
I think another critical aspect to really understand is the blockchain space moves extremely quickly. So if you are building your DLT in such a fashion that you think that you are going to build the ultimate version of something, oftentimes by the time that you've built this version of your ultimate vision of whatever you had in your head, by that time, the space has already continued and is somewhere completely different. So the style of engineering or thinking of that you are there and you put out this one thing and it's the best version that it can ever possibly be, is a completely wrong way of thinking if you are in the space of crypto or blockchains. That's why also now, with Iota, our way that we operate is no longer bringing out these big updates which break something or whatever else. No, it's rather doing incremental changes and also, looking where is the space heading, what kind of new insights and technologies, have been discovered, and then trying to incorporate them within your own protocol, which is a way smarter way to deal with the complexity of having an ever-changing industry, basically, because you're never going to just have one implementation of a chain and then that's the best version and it can't be better. That's just not how software engineering works, right? The biggest complexity for us today is just making sure basically that the system, the chain that we build is so modular that we are able to do these incremental changes. And you rather want to be adaptable than just bringing out very big updates and possibly breaking something with those. Because again, like a blockchain or a DLT or a DAG or whatever is an infrastructure, it's a platform. People build critical applications on it. And so you better make sure that what you build or what you provide is very, very stable. And you improve it over time with the insights that you gain. Because again, right, I don't think that in today's crypto industry, we are at the point where you have a killer application yet, where you can definitely say, okay, this is the one thing which is like billions of users and everybody's using it. And you just don't know really yet where the technology, or from a technological standpoint, how you need to develop. So you need to have applications, you need to see how people are using your infrastructure, you need to see what kind of issues there are or what kind of improvements there need to be, and you need to be adaptable and incorporate them. And I can tell you, or tell the audience, whoever is listening to this, right, this is a very different way to how the foundation and the development has worked previously. And yeah, I'm just very eager to see how, I'm very optimistic that we are going to make a very good job at this. And yeah, and we will see, right, how the ecosystem will be built up from that.
Yeah. No, that's really amazing, right? And I think we at the foundation, we're all super excited about this. And I think the community is also super excited from what we've been seeing there. Thank you very much for the talk, Luca, and for answering those questions. And obviously amazing work in pushing this out together with the team and delivering a new rebase to Iota, right? The start of something fresh, the start of something new that will be transformational to the project. So I think it will be very exciting to watch this unfold and to see how the future is going to be built on top of Iota. Any last comments from your side, or should we call it a stream?
Well, I just want to say, I hope that we have clarified some questions, some pressing questions people had. We're also in Discord, right? If you have any other questions or things weren't really answered for you. I think, I've been working at the foundation for 6 years now. And for me right now, this is the most exciting point in time working for and with Iota. And I think it's just a very different, like for me, I'm much more optimistic about our future and how it will look like than ever, basically. So yeah, I hope that everyone who's listening comes with us on our journey, uses the dApps which are going to be built on the Iota layer 1 or on the layer 2, that the community, gets more engaging, that we have, just a flourishing ecosystem. And hopefully, also we'll see at some point, right, hopefully in 25, real world applications really coming out, and one can then, finally say, hey, something, blockchain has helped this specific use case in the real world. It has optimized a certain process, etc. Just to see, okay, that the work that we are all doing better society in some way, and yeah, something comes out of it in that form.
Exactly. Yeah. No, let's build the future on and with Iota. I think that's what we're all here for. And now we have the right technology and the right direction to make this happen. So thank you very much for your time, Luca. Thank you all for listening. I hope this was insightful. Next time we'll see Luca as well.
Yeah, I hope so. Sorry about the cam.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I honestly, like, one thing that I'm really looking forward to, other than everything around Rebase as well, is just like being with the community again, right? Like doing hackathons next year, supporting the people that support Iota, are part of the community and are building on top of Iota. So we have some really good stuff that we're working on, so that we can all bring all of us closer together and support all of you, right? And so I think that would be really amazing to watch. Don't forget to actually try out Iota Rebase, right? Like the testnet is live, the wallet is live. You can actually download it and participate there. So make sure to just follow the instructions on the blog post. And for those of you who are builders, please reach out to us if you need any support, right? If you have any questions of where to get started with Move, deploying applications, like I think our team will be more than happy to help you on Discord. And with that, looking forward to seeing you guys on the next show, which will probably be next week, where we're going to do an AMA. All right. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Luca.
Thank you. Thank you, Dom.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.